My name is Leonardo Silva, and in this presentation, I'll be talking about critical tasks, task-based language teaching from an educational perspective. I'm a professor at the Federal University of Santa Catarina in Brazil, where I teach English as a second language, and my research interests they include critical language pedagogy, task-based language teaching, and critical perspectives to language teaching in general. So to start with, why should we talk about critical tasks? Why critical, first of all? As Freire reminds us, language is never neutral. So we use language in order to exist and to be in the world. In this sense, language has become a war zone, according to Gonari, because it has been used as both a tool of oppression and a site of resistance. So languages, they have been used to discriminate, to subjugate people, to undermine people's existence. And at the same time, it can be used to reclaim people's identities and the importance of their subjectivities. So here I quote Adrian Rich, the poet, who says that although this is the oppressor's language, I needed to talk to you. So how can we use languages in our favor? With that in mind, I claim that we need to move beyond the understanding of language used to do things, to perform activities, since languages, they are not only about communication exchange or information exchange, they also involve ideology, they are ideologically loaded. So we need to connect language teaching to social justice. And in order to do, my argument is that we need to move beyond the psycholinguistic rationale that is so prevalent in TBLT, and we need to go back and recuperate the educational theory behind TBLT as well. We should also question ourselves why tasks. So, how can tasks contribute to a critical perspective? As we all know, language learning in TBLT has to do with using contextualized and meaningful language and engaging in real world tasks or activities. So TBLT is connected to real life and language in the real world. I also bring Long here, who talks about the philosophical underpinnings behind TBLT. So, as he emphasizes, TBLT is connected to not only the concept of learning by doing, but also to individual freedom, rationality, emancipation, learner centeredness, egalitarian teacher student relationship, participatory democracy, and mutual aid cooperation. So I bring this here to claim that we have, or TBLT has a lot in common to critical perspectives to language learning and to critical perspectives on education as well. But then what are critical tasks? As we all know, according to TBLT literature, a task is an activity that has a primary focus of meaning, that involves processes of language use that are related to the real world. They involve or they mobilize different cognitive processes and they have a communicative outcome as well. Here, based on my studies and on Priscila Faria's studies, we claim that there should be an additional element so that a task becomes critical. A critical task should also allow for the development of critical consciousness, or conscientização, as Paulo Freire would say in Portuguese, that would happen through contextualized and situated language use. Here, when we bring this additional element to tasks so that they can be considered critical, we are actually promoting this intersection between TBLT and critical language pedagogy. So what is critical language pedagogy? Critical language pedagogy is teaching for social justice. So we believe that a critical perspective in TBLT should also promote this intersection, this connection with the theory of critical pedagogy. So in order for us to teach for social justice, there should be a focus on critical consciousness development. This should be the main goal. And critical consciousness development is considered a non-linear process. It's cyclical, it's never ending, which involves reflecting and acting upon reality. It is also based on critical dialogue. It allows learners to explore different realities, to consider different perspectives, and maybe review their own opinions and their understandings of the world. And it is also based on critical needs analysis. And critical needs analysis has the word critical in it because it implies not only understanding a students' linguistic needs, but considering power relations, ideologies, worldviews, and looking for possibilities of transformation through language use as well. So critical tests, they should allow for critical consciousness to take place. They should promote critical dialogue and they should be connected to students' critical needs. So they should take into account the social, political, and educational issues at the micro level of the language classroom, at the meso level of the school, the institution, but also at the macro level. Let's say, for instance, national teaching or language teaching policies, and so on and so forth. So here's a sample critical task to help us visualize the concept in practice. So the name of this task is Responding to Climate Change Misinformation, and you can also find it on the task bank. So in this task, students, they are required to respond to a WhatsApp message in which they need to present evidence of the effects of climate change in contemporary society. So they need to position themselves using data and evidence in order to claim that climate change is a reality. So as a pre-task, students, they watch a video on climate change and they identify specific information. So in this pre-task, they're building up their understanding of the theme, but also getting familiar with language that might be helpful for the completion of the task itself. And then also as part of the pre-task, they read a news report on a recent flood in southern Brazil, and they also identify general and specific information. As the main task, they respond to a WhatsApp message and they need to counter argue to this post that says that climate change does not exist. But in order to do, they need to use evidence from news with climate change events that took place in different parts of the world. So they read the different pieces of news in order to come up with their response. So they have some evidence to back up their arguments. As a post task, they socialize their WhatsApp messages, and with teachers' mediation, there's a reflection on environmental racism. So they discuss, for instance, why is it that people are impacted in different ways around the world by climate change events, and who are the groups or the populations that are mostly affected by climate change events. This is also a moment in which there might be a focus on form based on students' productions, on difficulties that arose during task completion, and so on. So going back to the concept, this is a critical task because, first of all, there is a focus on pragmatic meaning, so a primary focus on meaning. It involves processes of language use related to the real world, since they need to reply to a WhatsApp message. Students need to analyze the news pieces, engaging thus in different cognitive processes. There is a communicative outcome, which is their answer to the WhatsApp message, their reply. And there's also the opportunity for critical consciousness development, since they need to reflect on the theme of climate change by reading the different news pieces, comparing them, and also discussing environmental racism as part of the post task. Of course, critical tasks, they come with challenges, but also with possibilities. I would like to point out that a primary commitment to social justice, which is the main goal of critical language pedagogy or critical TBLT, implies that students' critical needs, they should come first. Also, Curriculum and task design must be democratic, collaborative. Also, our focus is on the process and not on the product. So it's not enough to, or the time duration of a task is not enough to evaluate students' critical consciousness development. So we should consider this development in the long term as well. And last but not least, the role of the teacher is pivotal in the design and the implementation of critical tasks because it is the teacher who will be able to mediate the discussion, instigate the students' reflective process, allow for critical dialogue to take place, and so on and so forth. Here you can have additional reading suggestions and the links to critical task samples. So you can use this QR code for you to engage in this reflective process of understanding critical tasks. And I would like to end my presentation quoting Paulo Freire, who says that approaching language teaching, and he's not only talking about language teaching, but teaching in general, but approaching teaching and learning from a critical perspective is the only possibility, since washing one's hands of the conflict between the powerful and the powerless means to side with the powerful, not to be neutral. So there's no neutrality in teaching, and likewise, there's no neutrality in language teaching. So that's why when we think about an educational perspective, a classroom oriented perspective, critical tasks are needed, especially in contemporary critical times, the times that we live in today. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Please reach out. Let's keep this conversation going. And thank you all for watching. Bye bye.